Here we go. Happy Monday. We're back. The Recap Lunch Hour with Guff, me, Ryan McGuffey, here at the Recap. And my goodness, talk about no news to big news all at once after last night, the Chicago Bulls trading Zach LaVine for a package that is far from impressive. It's got a lot of people out of sorts that the Bulls, maybe AK shouldn't even be the guy in charge here because, well, that's a whole other debate. Let's be honest with you. Okay. But after the Luka Doncic trade on Saturday night, I did the Bulls recap. I filled in for Cap last night. He's out west, also under the weather. So get well soon, Cap. Did the Bulls recap last night, watched the game, and it was like, okay, AK, it's time. Like, it's time. This doesn't matter anymore. And what? 2 hours later, Zach LaVine was on the Sacramento Kings. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan paired back up as teammates out west. Now it's about who goes next. It certainly feels that Nikola Vucevic is going to be gone. It really does feel that way, that he is next out the door. And we're going to do a podcast later on, a live podcast, 2 p.m. Joe Cowley, be a part of that. And, we're going to discuss this, etc. What's up, Clyde? At least the Bulls have a draft pick that could be Cooper Fleck. Yes. And so, the Bulls package for Zach was basically to retain the rights of their own pick, which again has people up in sorts because they traded for their own pick. But at least now they can't mess that up. At least now the Bulls are going to keep that protected pick. Now the tank begins. Okay? Now the tank begins. They're basically tied in the loss column with Philadelphia, but we know that's going to change here very shortly. So they've played 2 more games in Philly. Both of those are wins, so they're a game ahead of the Sixers. But now Zach LaVine's gone. We need the Bulls to plummet out of that 10th spot in the East, which I do expect them to. Problem is, it's like the Sixers are the only team because the Raptors, Nets, Hornets, and Wizards have all identified they're going to the lottery. Okay? They are going to the lottery. I think the Bulls are headed that way as well after this trade. What's up, Eli? Hi, Jess. Was Reinsdorf and the Bulls watching the lunch hour when we talked about the worst Chicago team? Perhaps. When I said the Bulls have not done anything, this is probably even worse. I hope Reinsdorf speaks. I would say this, Jess. You've been pounding the pavement for Jerry to speak. Maybe you get a Michael reaction. I don't know if Jerry's going to speak about this. I don't see that happening. I really, really don't. I really don't. So, but he might be watching the lunch hour. Eli's okay with the trade. And you know what? Clyde is. So am I. Because there are people, you always want them to get more. The problem is the Bulls didn't take advantage of this opportunity 2 years ago before they signed the max deal and actually could have packaged Zach for a 1 back then. Now, it's almost like it's buyer's remorse and it's about clearing the salary. And I know it's not sexy and you want to acquire as many draft picks as possible. But the fact that they were able to move, and I want to ask Joe this when we're doing a live Bulls podcast, 2:00. I want to ask Joe this exact question. Because he was surprised. He thought it was going to be too tough to move the money. What does just doing that do for the Bulls in this upcoming rebuild? Josh says, do you think the Bulls trade was an L because, they're rebuilding, but a lot of fans are complaining that they didn't get much back of it? I don't think it's an L. I don't. Maybe the draft, like when you look at it this way, and I tweeted this last night, I retweeted. When you look at it like this is from Elias Schuster, okay? Elias Schuster is a writer for Bleacher Nation. The Bulls traded DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Alex Caruso for Horter, Josh Giddey, Zach Collins, Chris Duarte, Trey Jones, 2 second-round picks, and the right to their own 2025 first-round pick. Not a single additional first-rounder was acquired. Unbelievable. That part I'll say that's unbelievable. But I will say I'm not like the return was never going to be great. You were going to take on bad money to replace Zach's money, and after that, the L's would start coming. I think the Magic Beans would have been a better trade. Jess, I want you to. You're gonna be the person that gets it done. We want them right here. Okay, Josh. Let me take over the Bulls. I'm not even a Bulls fan, but studying marketing and finance in college, I could be a better owner than Jerry Reinsdorf. Okay. So the Bulls lead the league in attendance, which that needs to change. Fans are fed up. We saw the poll last week in the Sun Times that 84% of fans have not watched one game. Stop going. That'll change. If you're that mad, this rebuild's not going to be overnight, folks. And the problem is it should have started 2 or 3 years ago. They kept running it back. D-man, Celtics and Lakers on top again. Whenever that happens, the Bulls get good soon after. A lot of hope and trust. I talk about that all the time on the radio. Hope and trust is not a great – I hate that as a Chicago sports fan, that we are relying on hope and trust. It's not a good place to be as a fan. So Kevin Herter, there's a comment here about Herter. I want to get him in. I butchered his name, by the way, the first time. That was my fault. Nice part of this deal, getting that first round back is crucial. And people are mad because it's like their pick. At least that is figured out. We don't have to sit here and go, God, they got to get in the bottom 10. They're not going to be in the lottery. Now they're in the lottery no matter what, assuming they finish bottom 14, which they're going to. I think they're going to fall into that top 10 for sure. Zach says, I'll miss LaVine. But they didn't win. We need to rebuild or retool around young players. That's a fact. They just didn't win with Zach. So a lot of it not his fault. Jimbo, what's up? We finally got his money off the books. Now AK can do something. We'll see. He's still on the clock. He's getting crushed by some people for the trade. I think it's a big deal. I do. I think it's a big deal to move him. Do you think Mattis will finally get starting minutes, or will Billy just keep his butt on? I think you're going to start to see Buzelis get some time. And because he's going to be the key guy in this thing going forward. Do you have any plans on having Kyle Davidson on the show at some point in the future? I don't hate that idea, Josh. We can talk about that. Hope and trust, yes, the motto of all Chicago sports teams. I hate it so much. Also over the weekend, we can talk more about the Zach trade, all you guys want. It is Super Bowl week, thank God. How about the Bears just continuing to add to this super staff? I did see a question, Eric. Bieniemy, a great hire for the Bears as running backs coach because he brings that valuable experience. 2-time Super Bowl champions and OC, still need no line coach. Well, Eric, there you go. Dan Rauscher from Tulane has experience all over here. I'll pull up his resume because I was looking at him earlier. Let's see here. Yeah, he's the Bears' new offensive line coach. He was an offensive coordinator at Michigan State. He went to Northern Illinois. His resume is all over the map. So he's been at Tulane the last 2 years. He was at New Orleans, the Saints, for 10 years. Running backs coach, tight ends coach, offensive line coach for 5 years, run game coordinator, and tight ends coach. He was an O-line coach at Michigan State, an O-line coach at Cincinnati, an O-line coach at Northern Illinois. So this dude, Rhode Island, this dude has been coaching the offensive line. The fact that he's been all over the place as a run game coordinator, up the line, as a tight ends coach, running backs coach. Those are guys, if you're the running backs coach and tight end coach, you know offensive line play. I asked the question, is this the Bears' best staff ever for a first-time hire? Any Bears coach that's been hired for his staff, is this loaded? I feel like it's the best. This is exactly what I wanted. I didn't think it would happen. I thought the Bears would not be able to get a loaded staff. But then they hired Ben Johnson and everything changed. Dustin says, love the Bieniemy hire. Great running back coach, but most importantly, he's a Super Bowl winning coach, knows how to win. Rauscher, a solid addition, given what he did in New Orleans, no doubt. Thomas wants to know about Myles Garrett, who demanded a trade today, or requested a trade maybe first, from the Cleveland Browns, put out a statement. So I saw Adam Schefter compare the Myles Garrett trade request to the Khalil Mack trade request back when the Bears traded for him. Just to recap what that trade looked like, because Myles Garrett, who is the reigning defensive player of the year, okay, He said that the package will mirror, or if he's comparing, it would look a lot like that deal. And I'm trying to dig that up. Here, Khalil was 27 at the time. The Bears gave up 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. For Mac, a second and a conditional 5th. I'm just saying, it's going to cost you a boatload. I don't know if the Bears have that type of capital to get rid of when they have so many needs up front. I was just thinking the same thing, Thomas. Not sure if they have the cash, though. Would be add to the second. Oh, yeah. You guys are – I love when you guys start having your other conversations within here. Let's go with yeah, I mean, no one's going to complain. Myles Garrett is a dude. We'd all love that. We'd all love that. Okay, it's Myles Garrett. We're talking about Myles Garrett. What would you get? It's going to cost you 1st and 2nd round picks, guys. It's going to cost. So, I don't know. That seems like it's not a lot for that type of player. Is he the missing piece? Can he play tackle? Chicago sports teams playing shake the magic 8 ball to determine their future, although the Bears and Blackhawks are actually doing decent and trying to build for contention. But we'll see. Sox are probably in that group too. I grew up loving Chicago sports, but at the same time, management ownership has been horrible and continues. Finally, the Bears are starting to get it, as the whole Chicago fans have been screwed for eons. No doubt, Wayne. No doubt. Pedro, Myles Garrett. Look, at everyone is in on Myles Garrett, right? Yes, I'm in. Am I trading all of that capital? God, man, I guess free agents. I need to know what free agency. I also have to look at Myles Garrett contract, because if you're giving that type of stuff up, are you also signing him to an extension? You'd have to if he's coming up sooner than later. Yep. Somebody saying the Bears should offer picks 10, 39, and 41 to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. Okay, so I'm not saying no. Are you kidding me? Him on that defensive line? Praying that Roger can elevate the current players. We need Wright to be a Pro Bowler. Here's what we need Wright to do. I think we need him to be a good right tackle. I don't even think he needs to be a Pro Bowler. I think he needs to be a 5-year good, above-average player. I don't think the Bears should trade for Garrett. While he would make our defense take another level, we would lose a lot of draft capital, which we desperately need. Although free agency can change all of this. Free agency can change all of this. Best staff that Wayne has seen, he's 69. How about that? Wayne's been around the block, but wait for staff like this, right? No doubt. Godfather, talking about the Blackhawks, he wants to know when they're going to hire a good coach. Lord knows. Kurt chiming in with an actual basketball question. How do you still have a job, AK? He's gotten rid of LaVine, DeRozan, and Caruso, and the only number 1 pick he got was their own. Yeah, I just read that tweet that I retweeted last night. It's that, when you put it in on a 30,000-foot view approach of it, I think it's terrible. I don't mind the return as much for Zach, because I think just getting him off your books and setting up, kind of kickstarting the whole rebuild was a big deal. If you were stuck with him and have to get creative in the offseason, I think this just kind of starts the whole process, and now you can actually get going on everything else you would like to achieve. You would think that Vooch is going to be the next one. I'm just reading here that the Bears are expected to give GM Ryan Poles a contract extension. I haven't seen that report yet. I'll have to read more about that. Just picking up a few things here, making sure we got everything. Okay, cool. Yeah, Myles Garrett would absolutely look good under Dennis Allen, no doubt. Dustin, I'm calling it now. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Not only will the Cubs find a way to trade for Dylan Cease, but they will land Alex Bregman on a Cody Bellinger type deal and call. So that's what we've been saying on Inside the Clubhouse on the Score on Saturdays. Bregman would pretty much have to be a Cody Bellinger type deal at this point. The Dylan Cease one to me is a no-brainer. As long as you're not giving up Matt Shaw, which the Cubs are not. I understand why the Padres are asking for him. They have to. But we did hit Dylan Cease's numbers on the show on Saturday. Do you know he's number 1 in the major leagues in starts since 2020? He's 3rd in strikeouts, more than Garrett Cole. Dude, he's a dude. Yeah, well, Myles Garrett would certainly help the trenches, Grover. But if you sign 2 studs in free agency on the offensive line, does that make those trades? Does that make those assets a little different now in draft capital if you give the most money to a center and a guard? So now you can pick two other players, maybe not first and second round, maybe like they have 4 picks in the first 2 days. You keep one of those picks, you draft another lineman. Now you have Myles Garrett. Now you can start. I think free agency kind of determines. Now Garrett is probably going to want to trade before then, or maybe this starts the tone of lining up a couple of weeks worth of negotiations prior to free agency. Offensive line first, says Wayne. I know the baseball offseason is dreadful. When will they put? Maybe the next CBA in 2027, but I don't know. I don't know if you can. It depends if they do a salary cap, salary floor. Mike says, "How can we complain about the trenches and not want blue chip players?" Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Mike. If you sign like Trey Smith or something, okay, now you have one of the top guards in the league. You have Darnell Wright. You need a left. Can you sign a center? The guy from Atlanta. Is there a tackle out there? And then can you draft? And then you make the trade for Myles Garrett, whether it's 10, 39, and 41. I mean, I think now you're talking about here. I'll pull this up so everyone has a good feel of where they're at. 2025, the Bears have a 1, which is the 10th, 2 seconds, the 39th overall pick from the Panthers, their own 41st, a 3rd round pick, which is 72. Then they have a 5th, a 6th, and 2 7ths. Okay. So they have a 1, 2 2s, a 3. So if it costs you those, what if you weren't drafting until the 3rd round? Would you be okay with that and get Myles Garrett? I don't know, man. While I agree with you, D-Man, keep in mind, Khalil Mack at that particular time was also Defensive Player of the Year at 27. He was pretty damn good. And if you look at his numbers with the Bears, they were pretty good too. This fan base is worried about draft capital. We barely get right to begin with. Mike, that's why I just read. If it costs you a 1 and your 2 2s, are you good with it? Assuming all the free agency goes towards, let's call it 2 big linemen. Leon, I'm not giving up anything. A 4th, then a 4th. You're out of your mind if you think that he's going for a 4th round pick, Leon. I mean, out of your mind. He's a reigning Defensive Player of the Year. You can make an argument he should be again. He won't be because of the Browns, but come on, man. Dude, that guy's getting traded for a haul. Don't trade for Garrett. He's going to be 30. Lions took 4 offensive linemen in the 1st round. Ben will replicate. Just according to Courtney Cronin, according to a team source with knowledge of the situation. Look at Jess. She's my investigative reporter, man. She's part of the team. Poles' deal runs through the 2026 season, and the expectation is that he will receive an extension to align with Ben Johnson. So Cap has been saying he had 2 more years. We knew his current deal ran through the 26 season. But as I've said on this show, that if they were going to get a Ben Johnson type, you would think, whether you liked it or not, that Ryan Poles would get new paper because that's how the situation usually goes. You can't bring in a guy that's all in and have a GM that's on the hot seat. Josh says we have the 6th most cap space in the NFL. If we spend all that on an O-line, maybe we go get Garrett. Hey, here comes the Ashton Genty thing again. I like Genty, but okay. Rather have great salary cap space go towards good offensive linemen and then trade for Myles Garrett or draft. I mean, you got to trade. It would be the trade for Garrett over drafting Genty. Wayne, we have an elite staff in place for the Bears. Let's allow them to do what's best for the team. I trust the staff. Josh, Cease, Finnegan, maybe Bregman on a belly type deal. I would stop bashing Ricketts and Jet. Let's just wait and see, folks. Keep in mind, the Cubs report Super Bowl Sunday. They report on Sunday. Cut pitchers and catchers. Remember, they're reporting like a week earlier because they're playing in Japan to start the season. That's why I'm saying wait and see. February 27th is when Cody Bellinger signed his deal last year. Kurt, can't let you down, Guff. Here's the Cubs. Well, we get it done. Look, we know they're checking in. I would love that. I'd trade Owen Casey in a second for that to happen. given back to the Padres. The O-line is not nearly as bad as y'all think. They were the worst coached line in the game. Coaching well. Okay. All right. Okay, Mike, I can buy that, but they're still going to spend. While they were bad, they were poorly coached. They weren't great players. They don't have a center. They literally do not have a guy who can snap in the shotgun. Pass rushers age well. They can be great. Okay, yes, Mike. And Myles Garrett is built different. You're talking about, hang on. Like Myles Garrett is so much different than the average lightning in a dude. He's got 102 sacks in his career. All this talk about, well, he's too old. Guys, hang on. Myles Garrett, sacks in a season. 2017, rookie year, 7. Here we go since then. 13 and a half, 10, 12, 16, 16, 14, 14. Okay. AP, first team, all pro. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 5 years. He was second team all pro 2 other seasons. He was the defensive player of the year last year. He was 10th as an MVP vote last year. Top 5 defensive player of the year 2022. He's a dude. He's different. He's very, very different. How with Poles operates, it's highly unlikely they spend money on Smith and pay Garrett and extend Gordon. We'll see. I'd say everything that you thought about Ryan Poles should at least be reconsidered now due to what's happened in the last 4 weeks. I really do. I think you need to maybe take a step back and let's look at what happens next with player acquisition. Let's take a look. Put Nico in the trade for C, sign Bregman, and move Shaw to second. All right, so the Padres have been told to shed money. So I don't think they're bringing on Nico Horner's $18 million or something like that. As a matter of fact, they would actually take on more money if they traded for Nico Horner when Dylan Cease is getting, I think, $13.75 this year. Nico Horner this season, on my bet, he's making 11.5. But you're pretty much canceling those two. You're canceling those two. I don't know. And the Padres, if I'm not mistaken, don't they have a second baseman? I mean, they're trying to win, but they're also trying to shed a little bit of payroll. And when I look at their stats from last year, they had Xander Bogaerts playing second last year because they had Kim playing short. But Kim just got signed, I believe, in Tampa. So Bogaerts, okay, so maybe they have a spot. But yeah, Dylan Cease, man, he's a dude. They should trade for him. Lip Ripper said, Lip Ripper, by the way, I screwed you on Purdue the other night. My God, good game. But I screwed you on I think they run him out of the gym. We hit Beal, though. We'll talk about that here in a minute in the recap bet of the day. I would trade one of the seconds and a future third. Hey, Lip, you're not getting Myles Garrett for that. You're not. O-line, protect Caleb. Yes. All right, Iowa State versus – look at it. I'm talking it into existence. Iowa State +2 against Kansas tonight is going to be Lip Ripper's play. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to have to take a look at that one. I'm just glad that we got off the schneid. We did not have a winless week last week. We're back to – we're 4-6 the last 2 weeks. We're pretty much 500. I went back and looked, too, by the way. We're 500, I think, the last 28 days. Right? What says gambling like 50-50? I agree with you, Mike. I think he's got easily 5 great years. He's absolutely worth it. Owen Camp, maybe. Clyde, dude, they're all prospects. Potential. I see potential in that word. Dude, don't be afraid of trading prospects. Don't be afraid of trading prospects. My God, the comments, you guys, phenomenal. I can't keep up with them today. Brad, I agree that staying with Poles is the best move. There's nothing you can do to erase the last 2 years. We all know Poles is signing at least 2 new linemen and drafting at least 1. Well, last year we thought the same thing. But, those D-line is one of the worst in the game. That's a fact. No team needs Garrett more. I don't know about no team. Thank you, Wayne. But the Bears certainly could fit. You go out and get Myles Garrett, by the way. You are signaling you are trying to go for it right now. Yeah, we did, Josh. We brought up Dan Rauscher earlier. I think it's a great move. Another guy a veteran coach that's been in the league for a long time. Not his first rodeo, not his first coaching job, not his first offensive line job. You're building guys who've been dudes in the league for a while. How about, Eric Bieniemy? What do you think he could do to Declan Doyle? What do you think Eric Bieniemy from the running back room goes, hey, Declan, if you consider this, this, and this, and what he can do to Ben Johnson, it's great. You're on the Jays on the trade Casey back. I don't know who you're talking about here, Mike. Sure as heck ain't me. I know coaching matters. I got cold. Oh, good. Lipton, you didn't lose any money. Garrett's a sexy pick. Fix the damn offensive line. They need help on the defensive line, too. We've been saying that on the show for a while. For those of you saying skip on Myles Garrett, you are hoping that you're drafting Myles Garrett. So I'm just telling you, if the Bears execute correctly in free agency, they could make a play in Myles Garrett. Swayze, what's up? As a great of a player like Myles, we have way too many offensive lines, but you could fill two of them in free agency. Not a single day lineman top 30. I know. I get it. Yeah, Wayne, we got to consider getting some hoodies with the Recap Lunch Hour logo for sure. Thoughts on Chip Kelly leaving for OSU? I don't have many. Chip Kelly wasn't going to stay at Ohio State for long. He did what he was supposed to do. This is a way to get him back in the NFL under somebody like Pete Carroll. It's a curious hire because Pete Carroll's remember I talked about building the staff like a coach in waiting? It's a good hire for Pete Carroll. Chip Kelly did not succeed in the NFL. Could that change? Has he learned? Well, he's going to be the right-hand man to a guy who I think is one of the best culture guys of all time. This should piss me off. Now, the only way the Cubs would not be in on Jack Flaherty is if they're saving that $18 million that Flaherty got for 2 years to try to get Bregman. So I know it sounds like Bregman doesn't want to go to Detroit. Detroit's doing all they can to hang in it. Flaherty was the guy they were already familiar with. They flipped him last year at the deadline. So there's definitely truth that the Cubs are pursuing aggressively. I think they're creatively pursuing Bregman, would be what I say. Still need a linebackers coach. I think I was going to say the Bears should take a chance on Brandon Staley since he was here in 2018. That would be another head coach. Yeah, it's all right, Swayze. We all right. How often do you get a franchise quarterback another year like last year? He'll be Fields 2.0. Fields 2.0, Justin Fields never came close to having the numbers that outside of rushing that Caleb had this year. 3,500 plus yards, 300 plus attempts without a pick. Come on, man. Come on. Next week I'll have the PGA Wasteman. Oh, that we were talking about, Katie and I, how we would love to go to that 16th hole, like the stadium hole where people throw beers on the course. That'd be great. Let's I hope so. There we go, Phil Sims. We hope so. I love Dylan Cease. I'm a fan of the dude. If he got back to Chicago and pitched for the Cubs, he would have some really good thoughts about that. Let's do our recap bet of the day as we got off the schneid, like I said, last Friday after a brutal start to the week. We were 0-4 at one point during the week, but we're back. And I'm going to play right into this NBA trade, the Luka AD craziness from Saturday night. I'm going to ride Domantas Sabonis here. It's a big number. It's going to look almost too big. But if you average out, he's a 20.8, 14.4, 6.5 guy. Okay? So he's averaging over 41.5 a game for this season. And now there's no Zach LaVine, no De'Aaron Fox there tonight. Zach's not going to play tonight. In Fox's absence, Sabona, I had it here earlier. Without Fox in the 3 games, he had 42, 50, and 54. So I'm going to ride that. I'm going to try to get us going here. 16, 21, and 1, which puts us at 14 and 14, like I said, the last. He did get effed out of a max salary deal. He'll still be okay. He's still going to get like a $290 million extension for 5. He's just a year short. Clearly, the Mavericks were done with him. You in? Let's go, Lip Ripper. Hop on board, brother. That's what I'm going to go with. I'll put it back up here in a second. So many comments. If the Cubs let Kyle Tucker walk, Owen K. Yeah, but if you're deal with everything as it comes. What if I told you that you could have Dylan Cease and Kyle Tucker and the Cubs win 94 games and get in the postseason and become super dangerous? You're not going to worry about Owen Casey then. So that's the bet of the day. We're going to go Domantas Sabonis over 40. Like I said, big number, but he's playing undermanned tonight. He doesn't have, obviously Fox is gone and LaVine's not there yet. Eric, my goodness, bud. I don't know. When? I think rather than who, it'd be when. We'll ask Joe that here in an hour. 2:00, a live Bulls recap podcast. Joe Cowley. I will join him as well. Fire up. Come back on and join us. It'll be a Bulls recap podcast live here on the channel at 2:00. And I think for now, we'll put a bow on this one as our Monday edition of the Recap Lunch Hour. It got going. After about 10 minutes, you guys are pouring in here. The comments are impossible to keep up with. You guys know how much I appreciate you. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate the love. Trust me, I give it back to you guys every day. This has been the Recap Lunch Hour with Guff, me, Ryan McGuffey. On behalf of everyone here at the channel, we will come back tomorrow. We will have, like I said, Bulls Recap Podcast at 2. We'll have a Recap Rush Hour later today when Cap gets back from Portland. That'll be on the channel later tonight. The podcast of the Bulls, if you miss it, will be available on demand and then the audio form wherever you listen to podcasts. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Monday before it gets cold again. We made it to February. That's a win. I'm Ryan McGuffey. It's the Recap Lunch Hour. We'll see you guys tomorrow.